him inside.
So here we are. This is the house that I've been working on. Most of you know that in my spare time I like to do some construction. So some of the things that I've been able to do here is I've been putting some walls in. You can see a wall right here going down to the basement of the cellar. I put some door frames, put some headers in, expanded some things out. Put some new walls in here. Getting ready. The electrician's going to be coming in the next week or so and getting all the outlets in. Getting this place pretty close to be livable. There's Conley's Construction here. Spray foam here in town is going to come in and put spray foam in. So when this house is complete, it's going to be super nice. We're going to first show you a wall that we worked on yesterday and got finished. So we'll go upstairs for that. So this is just going to be a half wall. She wanted it to be a certain height. She wanted it to be 51.5 inches, so it worked out really good for what we did. And then she's got a wall here. She's thinking about maybe putting a stained glass window in here to get different colors of in the morning when the sun comes up from the east, spread out throughout the house. So I think that'll be really neat. One of the things we're gonna talk about today is the importance of being able to use numbers and math while you work in construction. Now, here's my disclaimer. I am not a professional carpenter. I do the best I can.
I'm not professional either.
Definitely not professional. But we do the best we can with the skills that we have. And it's really important, though, for things to be square in order to have those 90-degree corners for the boards or the drywall to fit in nicely. It's important that things are cut the exact length. You want to make sure that when you have a wall and it's finished, that it's level across the top. Same way here. You want to be able to essentially put a marble on and watch it just sit still. You don't want it to slope one way or the other. So we're going to get some things ready. We're going to go work on just a 2-board wall in a corner here. So here we go. So it's pretty important to be precise with the measurements. So she's giving me directions on how she wants this wall to be set up. So we're going to go ahead and get that measurement to make sure we know. It's going to come from the sidewall out to the stud right here. So I'm just going to get a measurement because we're going to this board here. It's called the stud.
So I know Ratliff was telling you guys about these studs to hold the house up. You know what else is a stud? Me.
Go straight up and down. I know that these two are level, so I'm just going to come and get a measurement. So if he comes down here with this tape measure, we're going to see that with the camera. Yeah, in construction, your studs, your boards should be about 16 inches. And we can see here that this is really close. Remember that this house was built in the 1930s. They didn't have the same tools that we have today, so that's about as close as we're going to see. So I need to come out at 15 7/8. So if we think about the tape measure, in between inches, and let's talk between inch 10 and inch 11. So we know that halfway between the two whole numbers would be the 10 5/10 or 10.5. And then on these tape measures, each time we break it into halves again, we come down for half of that. So half of a half times 1/2 would be 1/4. So that's going to put us right here. And then half of a fourth, 1/4 times 1/2, going to give us 1/8. And then half of an eighth will give us a 16th. So from our 10-inch mark to our 11-inch mark is going to be 16 small tick marks, and those are each worth 1/16 of an inch. So as we measured that, we saw that it came to 15 7/8 or 14/16. All right, so at the bottom, we're gonna be able to put this a little bit in the wall. So I need to be at 19.5 inches. So I'm just gonna make a little mark here at 19.5. Again, that'd be the same as 8/16 on the tape measure. And then we measured already the other markings. So the other markings we needed was 15 7/8. So I'm going to come out to 15 7/8. And I'm going to mark on both sides of the board just because that makes more sense for me. And then I'm going to use a square. And it's called a speed square. It's right here. And what this speed square does is it gives me a straight 90-degree angle. So we talked angles, that this is our 90-degree. This then would be a 45-degree angle. But if we it's got a lip built in here. So we put that right on those two marks. Then I'll be able to connect those and get the line right where I need it. So there's my line on that board. And this is going to be the line on my other board. Now again, we also talked about studs in between the wall.
So I know Ratliff was telling you guys about these studs to hold the house up. You know what else is a stud? Me.
Being at 16 inches, so from the inside of one board to the inside of the other would be 14.5 inches. So with this being my bottom board, I'm just going to put bottom right here on it to remind me that's where it's going. This is going to be my top board. I know they're going to be different because the bottom board is going to sink in to the wall. So what I'll do next is I'll cut these, and then I'll go ahead and measure my 16 inches. We know that this is not quite 16 inches. It's 15 7/8. So we're just going to have a stud right here and a stud board right here. So the stud boards, if we looked at the distance there, are 1.5 inches. So I know that from the end, my mark has to be at 1.5. Just kind of gives me some guideline. And the same thing here at 1.5. The reason we want these to be the same is because when we put the 2x4s going straight up and down, we want them to be at a 90-degree angle with the floor, or we call it being level. So I've got my compound miter saw, compound meaning more than one, miter meaning something else, cutting, I think. So my compound miter saw, and the reason we call it compound is because we can go at different angles. We can go at the angle up and down. We can actually, if we wanted to, turn this so that we could cut the boards at different angles. So if I tilt this, then the blade comes through at different angles. And if you can get a close-up right here, we can see that we've got a 45 mark, a 30, a 15. So just kind of a guide there as we want to go. We want to make a straight 90-degree cut here, so we're going to put it back to 0. I'll tighten that down. Always important, if you're working with power tools, you already know this, but always important to be safe. So notice that because the saw is going to be cutting, I've got my safety glasses on, and I'm just going to drop this in here. I'm going to do a quick check to make sure that I'm right on the outside of my line. So it is. And then this is a 10-inch compound miter saw. The revolutions per minute on this is somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000. So it's going to rotate at the speed per minute of 3,000 to 5,000 times. So if I were to put a mark right here on my saw blade, from here to here, it's going to, in 1 minute, it would rotate 3,000 to 5,000 times. So it's going really fast. Obviously, there's sharp little points on there, so we keep our hands clear away. I'm going to hold it just in place here. There are some other devices on tools that sometimes help. We could raise this up and clamp it in. We're not going to be here that long to have to worry about it. So I'm just going to make a quick cut here. I'll do the same with the other board. Let that blade completely stop. Again, safety is always the most important thing for me. That's in case Mrs. Ratliff watches. I try to be as safe as I can be. So this is now going to give us our bottom board and our top board for this 2-board wall. And what we're trying to do is we're just trying to camouflage really the heating vent that's going up there. So I want to make sure that I have my bottom board on my bottom board. Now there's a couple of different ways that we can do this, and Mr. Youngman's going to talk about the science behind this.
Alright, so right here we got a screw and we got a nail. So with these, we've got our, the ancient Egyptians. We haven't really talked about those yet, but hopefully we get time by the end of the school year. So we've got our inclined planes. So in this one, they've got to twist it around the screw so that when you screw it in, it ends up staying in the wood. So if, by choice for me, if I'm building something, I usually choose screws because they typically like to keep things tighter together. They work a lot better. But you also have a nail. So if you look at the tip of the nail is pointed so that when you go to actually hammer it into the board, it will wedge in between the board, which is another type of simple machine. Because we've got our complicated machines over here with electricity, but in case you can't do that or your parents don't trust you with power tools, like my parents never trusted me, so therefore I don't have very much experience, they worked with this. So what's going to happen is, again, safety first. Safety is always the key. You're gonna find your spot that you want your nail, right? So we've got our hammer, always being safe. So you're going to drive that nail in there to start, right? So then you're going to end up nailing it in far enough so that when you line it up, it's a lot easier to get these 2 boards together. My choice when I'm doing construction, which isn't very often, is the T25 Star Bit. These things, they're the best. If you're watching this and you have connections, sponsor me. We'll keep it like that for now. Then we'll add our other ones as well. Gotta make sure this house is sturdy. I don't want this thing falling apart even though I don't live in it. That would be my luck.
Alright, so as we get ready to connect the wall here, I just want to make sure that these are standing in 90 degrees. So I've got a board up above, and this board's gonna hold these two boards in place. I've got a little pressure I'm putting down as well on here. So we'll just go ahead and attach these in. And again, Mr. Young already talked about the bits. The bits are a T25. It's really good because with this style of bit, you've got a bunch more connection points when you're going to screw that in, so the drill doesn't slide off it. Those of you who remember a couple weeks ago, I put a drill bit through here because it slipped off of a Phillips screw. So I'm wisely using the T25 now. I also want to make sure that this is leveled this way. So because we got a little dirt and grit, I'm going to use just a little wedge underneath this board, bring it up to the level point that we have here. So that's one end. We'll be right back. I'm going to go ahead and attach the other end, and we'll show you putting it up in the wall. I want to be 14.5 inches in between because I've just measured my other side. So I'm going to bring this into 14.5, and that's going to let us be 90 degrees straight with the floor once we put this up. So you can see that we've got that wall put together now, and it's going to fit right up in here. So what we'll have to do is we're going to splice this board in here as well. Then we'll connect another board on the top so we can make it level with the outside walls, and the drywall and everything will fit in smooth. It's called the top plate. And once we do that, this wall will be finished up. So the good news is we've already talked about measurement, we've talked about area, and we've talked about volume. So one of the things that we can do, and I'd like for you to kind of measure these things out, and I'll do the same at my house, but when we're finding the area of a room, we know that we're going to take base times height or length times width. So we'd start from one side of the room. I'm just going to hook the tape measure in right here. Mr. Wise is going to help me out. So hook the tape measure in, and to find the area of this room, we would have a 128.5. So I'm going to make a note of that, 128.5. Nice thing is all these walls will be covered, so I'll just do that right here, 128 and 5/10. And then he's going to go to the other edge, and we can find the area of just this room. So from here, we go to 160. So we would take 160 times 128.5. That'll find us the area of this room, which is going to be a pretty large room. But so a couple of things that you could do as you're at home is just work on finding the area. So maybe go into your bedroom or the bathroom, the kitchen, and see if you have a tape measure, something you can use. You can line up yardsticks or rulers if that's what you have at home. Maybe you can use your tennis shoe and just measure it, line those up. But find the area of some of the rooms in your house. Then you can find the volume. So if we were going to fill this with water, the amount of space on the inside. Then we'd have to also know the height from the ceiling down. So you just go, maybe get a step ladder, something OSHA approved, and you can also find that third number, and in this case, it is going to be 101. So to find the volume, so this is our area. We would take the answer to our area, this answer right here, and we take that times our height, which in this case was 101 inches, and that'll find the volume. I misspell at home too. The volume of this room. So some great activities that you can work on when you're just around the house is you could find the area of your bedroom, the area of the other rooms in your house, and then you could know the square footage of the house you live in. You could also find the volume in case you ever turn your house into a large swimming pool. So we're up in the attic now, and this is a pretty amazing project that the homeowner has decided to do. What she's done is she supported the roof with, it's called a knee wall, so that you see every one of those boards that are going up help support the roof. And then she had the roof, the attic, sheeted with 4 by 8 feet sheets of plywood. So what we had to do in order to order the right materials was get the area of this room. And you can see that the room has some different cubby holes and things in it. So what I had to do was use an outer area, and then what I did was I subtracted where the slide going downstairs and the stairs going downstairs would be.
There is a slide. You guys have to see this. This is the coolest thing ever. If I ever build a house, I'm adding it. So you've got your stairs over here, right? And then next to it, you've got this awesome slide. It's the coolest thing ever.
It is pretty cool. But we had to take this out. So we had to decompose this part out in order to know how much we needed to get. So what I did was I measured one direction, I measured the other way, found the total area, decomposed it out. So I'm going to give you some numbers to see if you can figure out how many sheets of sheeting, 4 feet by 8 feet, I had to order in order to do this. We've talked that circumference is 360 degrees. We noticed from the construction video, or you will notice in the construction video, that this is a T-square. It's at a 90-degree angle. So for this to make one revolution, it would have to spin on an axis 360 degrees. So our first spin takes us 90, and then we have our second one getting us to 180. Our third one takes us to 270, and then our fourth one would get us to 360 degrees. One revolution. The skill saw, the compound miter saw, spins at somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 revolutions per minute. If you're talking about just a normal skill saw, this is a Makita skill saw, picked up at a garage sale. It's going to tell us that the saw size is 7 1/4, and we're going to go about 4,700 revolutions per minute. So this thing spins per minute from this little opening, spins around 4,700 times every minute, going really fast. So we've already seen this crazy cool slide, but in order to be safe, they had to make sure they had what was called the slope. A slope is the rise, the amount it goes up, and the run is how far it goes. So from the bottom all the way over to the edge. So once they were able to get that, then they could find the slope that they needed. So what they had to do is they had to measure from where the slide stops, the distance up, which was about 8 feet, and then they had to measure from here all the way to the back of it, which was about 12 feet.
Which you can actually see because there aren't walls right now. So if I back up and move over, you can see that the slide is still going over all the way to this wall right here, which ends up leading to these stairs that go downstairs.
So with a slide, there's a rise over run or a slope, but with a staircase, there's the same thing. And this should be the same for each step. So when we talk about the slope of the steps, we have to get two measurements. First, we have to get the measurement of the rise, which if we look here, would be about 7 and, we'll call it 5/8. So 7 5/8 up, and then the run would be how far back it goes, and here we go to about 11 1/2. So for the slope, if we're up 7 5/8, and we're running or back 11 1/2, then we would do that for every step as we go up and it would be the same slope. So when you take steps, as you notice at the steps at Lincoln Center or wherever you are going up steps, most of the time, with the exception maybe of the bottom step or the top step, they're always the same, and that's the slope that they need. Now that's really important when you go to make what's called the riser. The riser is this board right here, and if you get a close-up of this, you can see that it's cut going up and it's cut coming back. So it's cut at a rise and it's cut at a run. And those have to be identical for the staircases to look right.